Welcome to the Lowdown Podcast, the show where we dive deep into the topics that directly impact the evolving originator. I'm your host, Connor Bartley, bam! And joining me today is someone that I have been thoroughly impressed with. Not even in the business for 10 years and already some pretty impressive accomplishments. A creative mind that's innovating to solve problems and really an extremely bright future. Alex Hernandez, welcome to the Lowdown.
Hey, thank you so much, Connor, for having me here. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here with you today.
Awesome. Well, I am pumped to have you here, Alex. I know you're going to bring so much value to the listeners, and it was fun just kind of having this crosstalk even before we started recording, because I know that there's going to be a lot that we can discuss that an evolving originator is going to benefit from. But just to set the stage and get some context, let's go back to the origin story. What brought you to the mortgage business? What does a listener listening today need to know about you?
Yeah, much like many of the people probably listening to this, they didn't grow up going through elementary and middle and high school wanting to do mortgage loans for a living. I actually didn't know what a mortgage originator was until 2016. I remember I was selling cars at the time, and I always had this thesis that no matter what I was working on, I was in college and I was selling cars. No matter what company I was working for, what job I had, it couldn't just have to pay the bills for me. That wasn't a prerequisite. That was definitely made my decision. But also, I had to learn something. I had to be part of something and make sure that I was building my tools, my skill set along the way. So I started selling cars because I thought it would make me a better salesperson. And a gentleman that I was working with told me that he wanted to be a broker. And he was like, yeah, man, it's amazing. I can just work remote. I can travel whenever I want. And dude, I can make $100,000 a year, no problem. And I had no clue. I just was like, I didn't own a home at the time. I never bought a house at the time. I had no clue what he was talking about, but I was too embarrassed to be like, okay, what is that again? And so that was my first introduction to even knowing what a loan originator is, 2016. And I left selling cars and went and started working at a credit union. While I was finishing up my degree, I got a bachelor's degree at Dixie State University in Southern Utah. I went there and I actually started doing consumer loans. So home equity loans, credit cards, installment loans, auto loans, okay? And so quite frankly, I really enjoyed the HELOC process. I really enjoyed helping people free up cash flow in their lives. A lot of people tend to have too much credit card debt, but they had all this equity built up over the years. So we would tap into that equity and free up their cash flow. Really enjoyed that piece. And I used to joke with my branch manager, and I was like, man, if you can just lock me in the back room and let me just do all the HELOCs. I don't want to do credit cards. I don't want to do installment loans. And so I quickly rose to be the top kind of HELOC producer in our region. And it wasn't that impressive to do. I think it was only $500,000 a month of HELOC production. It wasn't super crazy, but you know, it was nice to wear that number one badge, right?
Right.
And my sphere of influence was originators in our area. So I would take loan officers in my market to lunch and I would introduce myself. I would say, hey, listen, I want to be useful to you. I want to be a tool to you. And if you have a customer who has too much debt, or maybe they need to update their auto loan because their payment's too high, whatever, just to help get your ratios in line, I'd love to be a resource to you. And I started referring business out. So that is actually how I learned about the business. I started, my sphere of influence were lenders, and I honestly, one person came in and one LO, and I saw their paycheck and I was like, yeah, I'm doing the wrong thing. I was like, I'm done, dude. And so I saw the opportunity that there was doing loans, doing mortgage loans, and the value that I can still provide and do things that I liked. And so I only worked at the credit union for 1 year, and I made the jump over. So 2017, I got into the business officially.
Okay, great. Well, so I love this approach that you took, though, of realizing that you could be a resource to other originators to expand your business, but also offering yourself kind of in a servitude way, and really saying, "Hey, let me help you." And I think it's important for a listener to hear that, because There's a lot of people that realize that there's a path out there, but it's a who, not how sort of scenario. And they've got to be bold enough to go out and make those outreaches and build those relationships. So, do you mind just for a second kind of walking through how you found that sphere of influence, who it was that, and your process and connecting with them and setting up those meetings?
Absolutely. And it's really important to know that no matter who you're talking to, everybody wants something. And so the key is understanding what the other person actually wants and how you can facilitate that for them. And so I started building a relationship with these other LOs because my branch manager at the time, he kind of was the guy of doing HELOCs and he was trying to kind of pass it on to me. And so I inherited a handful of relationships, just a couple of them, and I saw how that was a nice steady flow of home equity loans coming to our credit union. And so I said, okay, this is great. This is a good start. So that kind of opened up my eyes because half of the battle is just realizing there's an opportunity there, right? So once you learn that there's an actual opportunity there, now it was, okay, let's put the nuts and bolts together on how can I actually take an approach that's calculated. Because then I started doing the math. If I talk to 20 LOs a month and I get one or two of them to start referring me business every month, that will start to compound. And yeah, maybe first month, 2 or 3, I'm not going to get a lot, but in months 6, 7, 8, and 9, I'm going to look like a genius. And so what I started doing simply was I just typed in mortgage broker in St. George, Utah, right? And I reached out to my network, which I didn't have a big network at the time, but I started just reaching out and asking questions. I was like, hey, do you know a loan officer? But very simply, I would just start calling them and they'd answer, or most of the good ones would answer. But I would leave a voicemail as if I was a client. And maybe this is a little sneaky on my part, but I'd leave them a voicemail. I'd be kind of vague on why I was calling them just to get the call back. And then I would tell them, hey, by the way, Connor, my name is Alex. I work over here at this credit union. And then I started listing the accolades. I just helped another loan officer, your competition, by the way, get a deal done because we refinanced their car and got their debt to income ratio under the threshold that they needed. I did it in less than 1 day. And I want to show you how I can do that for you. And they'd be like, sick. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And here's the thing though. Here's the thing is most people stop there. Most people say, okay, cool. I made my 10 contacts this week or today, I'm done. It really comes down to the follow-up because loan officers are not used to vendors because I was kind of a vendor. I was kind of creating that relationship with them to then show up to their office a couple days later and be like, hey, I'm Alex. We talked the other day on the phone. I just wanted to kind of touch base with you again. And I wanted to bring a couple things to show you now visually how I can help you. And then what I would do in that meeting, because that's truly like you would get a small lift of people that would start sending you business right away just because you made that first contact. But
Right.
it's a very small portion of them. Most people are satisfied with that. And I wasn't. I was like, okay, I want a higher pull-through rate than just the 1 or 2 that are going to start automatically sending me stuff because now I'm a resource. So I actually started meeting with them and going back to what I originally said, Connor, everyone wants something. So I would ask them, Connor, what are your goals? Like, what are you looking to do? Like, how long have you been originating? Okay, so how many deals do you think you do every year that are declined because your client has too much debt? Okay, that's a good portion. So if you put a dollar value to it, if I can help you save 5 deals a year, how much is that worth to you? Right? So you can start assigning real value to the relationship by just making it clear of what I can do for you. And then what I would do is I would make it clear once I helped them on a refi, I would be like, hey, Connor, thank you so much for saving my client. I just saved them $6,000 in interest by refinancing their rate from this to this. Or we in some cases just took their term and stretched it back out, but it opened up this much cash flow. But I told them that you referred me and they think you're the hero, right? So like I would always try to build it back into the relationship and let them be the star. And
Yeah.
just be useful. That's truly just all I was trying to do was just be useful.
Yeah. So sounds like you are crushing it on the HELOC world. You decide to get into, origination. You saw that paycheck. You're like, this is the life for me. So clearly you walk in first year, you must have crushed it, right?
Yeah, I did a whopping $1.2 million the first year. 1.2 million. And honestly, it was my fault. I'll tell you why. It's a funny story. My background is I've always been into marketing, I've always been into businesses, and I've always wanted to start a business. And the reason why I was so enamored by the money when I saw that paycheck wasn't because I just wanted to have a big house and a cool car, which again are nice things. It was because I wanted to have seed capital to be able to fund my own projects. Truly is what I wanted. And so I said, okay, I've started businesses and every business has failed because I have no money. So maybe I should solve the money piece first. Let me go make some money first. And so I saw this as an opportunity to help people, but I saw it as an opportunity to make enough money, not only to provide the life for my family that I wanted and desired, but also to start the projects that I desired and really made me happy. And so I saw it as a really good vehicle. I was like, this is a fantastic vehicle. Ceiling, I can do as much as I want. I can make as much as I want, as long as I'm willing to put the time, energy into it and actually level up my skill set to get good enough to do it. So my thesis was screw real estate agents. Truly, that was my thesis, Connor. I said, we don't need real estate agents.
I
I'm
think
just going
everybody
to
can
go,
relate.
yes. And I'm going to go direct to consumer, baby. I'm going to go
Yeah.
and can get to the customer before the agent does. And I'm gonna run Facebook ads and I'm gonna do all these cool things and quiz funnels and yada, 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 yada. And I had a rude awakening because number one, the learning curve in mortgage is already steep enough, right? I should have really nailed down and said, you know what, I'm gonna get good at this for the first 6 months to a year and get a good foundation. And then I'm gonna start going crazy. But I started running Facebook ads. I started tinkering and learning that skill set. And I had a rude awakening when I generated my first lead that actually contacted me back and actually let me do an application. Like, dude, my
Yeah.
mouth was like on the floor. I was
It
like,
worked.
holy smokes, I'm a genius. I tried to get it to one of the real estate agents that I was kind of working with. But again, at this point, I really wasn't working with agents. I was just focusing on direct to consumer. And then that client goes, hey, Alex, I'm not going to go with you. I'm going to go with someone else.
Oh,
And
brutal.
I ripped my heart out. I was just like, what? I was so frustrated. I ended up saving the deal after completely cutting everything back. I literally lost money on the deal. And it was because the real estate agent that he was working with wanted him to work with his guy. And that moment, a light bulb went off for me. And I said, I'm thinking of this wrong. I need to go to the real estate agents and I need to help the real estate agents be more successful. And they will help me be successful. And that was a big turning point for me. But I made $25,000 my first year in the business. I took a 3-year decline of income from 2016. I made 60,000. 2017 at the credit union, I made 32,000. Now 3 years running, I'm losing money, so I should get an award for that. Like
Right.
my wife was probably like, "You're going backwards, dude. What are you
Yeah.
doing?" And in hindsight, it was of course the best thing I've ever done, but it wasn't easy. It's not easy to be like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? So yeah, that was a big eye opener for me.
Well, so you mentioned something about when you were at the credit union about this 9 month, this long term strategy that you had. Like, yeah, it may not make a difference in month 1, 2, and 3, but in month 9, I'll look like a genius. And I think that's a really important point to make because in this industry, sales in any industry, really, it is a what have you done for me lately kind of culture. And so it can be really stressful and difficult to have that mindset of I'm planting seeds for the future and not give in to the stress of like instant production. And just sort of get yourself off path and really just focus on the here and now versus the distant future. Have you implemented more of a long-term strategy in your business now? And does that look similar with I know we talked a little bit about like Russell Brunson, Alex Hormozy before we started recording here, but have you taken some pages out of their playbook and how you operate and generate leads?
Yeah, absolutely. I think fundamentally you have to put yourself in a mindset to always try to get better. And I think about stacking skills is something I talk about a lot because one skill by itself is rarely that valuable. But when you stack 5 skills on top of each other like a building block,
Mm-hmm.
the value of each skill becomes exponentially more valuable to your organization, to you, right? And so the quest isn't how do I become valuable to wherever I'm at, whether that's to my real estate partners, my builder partners, my company, my family. It's what is the path of skills that are most useful to me now and over time as they add on to each other will give me exponential leverage versus my competition, or so I think of this as a long-term plan. You got to really understand this thesis that I have. And I've actually learned this from Alex Hernandez, and it's a very simple formula. It's volume times skill times time is outcome. So I look at that and I say, okay, volume, what is that? I'm not talking about volume in production. I'm talking about volume, how much effort you're consistently putting into something, how much volume I'm willing to put into this problem or project or business. So volume is that piece. How much effort and time can I put in, or effort I can put in? How frequently can I do this action? Times skill. People don't want to talk about skill. People want the outcome, but aren't willing to endure the cost of skills. Maybe that's money and time and energy, right? It takes effort to gain skills. Often it takes trial and error and money to obtain skills. So you see how we're going down this formula. So we got volume. How frequently can I do this thing? How many calls can I make? How many calls can I put into this? And then skill. How skillful am I on the phone to get you not to hang up on me? And how skillful am I to overcome objections? Have I tooled myself with the resources to do it? And then time. You can be so good and you can put as much time and energy as you want into something, but sometimes you just need to let time do its thing. And that's that time horizon. How big of a time horizon are you going to give yourself? So when you can stack these three things together, you're guaranteed going to get the outcome you want. And I can tell you that you will guaranteed get it because it just depends on how long you give yourself to do it. Because if you can put enough volume into something, you can tool yourself with enough skills for that something, and you can let time do its thing, you are a force that can't be reckoned with. Regardless if the results are showing today, they will show up eventually, as long as you can be disciplined enough to stick to that process. And so there was a long time going into COVID, for example. Everyone, my peers, I'm kind of running up, right? I did 1.2 million my first year. I did 7 million my second year. I did 20 million my third year. My third year in the business was 2020, right? So what was happening in 2020? Rates came down.
Yeah.
But here's the thing is how much of mind games could you play on yourself when you are looking at your peers whose volume is inflated because 80% of their pipelines refinances and 100% of your pipeline's purchases. And you're like, wow, like I've been working on this thing for 3 years and I can't even beat the people in my office. You know what I mean? Like this is going in my mind. Yeah. I'm just like, what is going on? And it's funny because you just gotta, if you can keep on at it and you keep on building and you build it the right way, when the refi boom stopped, my production kept going up. Because I saw what was valuable. I saw that, yeah, sure, I did refinances too, but what was valuable was the real estate agent at the end of the day, right? It's funny how I had this whole 180 of like, real estate agents suck, I don't need them, to let me go be a servant to my real estate agents and let me go help them get what they want. And I did. And what happened was they looked at me as someone that was a linchpin to their business because they said, yeah, not only does Alex do loans, which anyone can, my customers can go anywhere for a loan, but what I can't replace is what Alex does for me in my business, the follow-up and the cold calls and the lead gen and X, Y, and Z. They're like, I can't replace that, right? And so anyways, I guess to answer your question, if someone's watching this and they're struggling with, okay, what does my horizon look like? Especially right now, last 2 years have not been easy for everybody, right? And I get a lot of questions. It's like, man, Alex, I want to leave the business. And I tell them the story about me. I tell them like, listen, man, this business, any business for that matter, can be insanely fruitful and beneficial for you if you're willing to endure the crappy times too. And so, if people look at this meeting and they get one thing out of this podcast today, and that's volume times skill times time equals outcome, and they can stick to that for an extended period of time, I can guarantee you that they'll get what they want.
I love that. That's a great lesson. So you made a couple comments and you talked about your growth year over year and kind of how you've grown as an originator. And that was one thing that when I didn't know who Alex Hernandez was, but was researching the market and kind of came across, I think we originally connected on LinkedIn. That was something that really caught my attention, was this growth pattern that you had. Surely along the way, you've identified a challenge in your business or something that needed to be addressed to fine tune a process or a system. What was it that really clicked for you where you said, okay, this is something that needs to be identified, or I identify this as a problem, here's how I'm going to fix it?
Yeah, so it's funny because we think that the outcome, like we look at other originators who are producing a lot and we're like, man, it must be nice. Like they probably got it all figured out. And the reality is everyone deals with the same problems. At the end of the day, our business is very simple. Getting a client approved for a loan is very simple. What's challenging is the people involved, right? It's the actual customer service piece. It's helping that customer get what they want and navigating their finances, right? And so the thing is problems arise every single day, every day. And I have problems even now. I mean, every day. And sometimes yesterday was a crappy day for me. And I remember I walked into my office today and I saw my processor. I said, you know what? Today's going to be a good day. And I'll tell you what, we can't have today if we didn't have yesterday. And so understanding that the polarity and the ups and downs are important. And the downsides are just as good as the upsides because, and this is very cliche, you can't appreciate when you're winning if you've never really appreciated when you're losing or really understand how valuable losing is and how hard winning is. Guys, winning is not easy. It's not easy and it's a fight. And everything that we've worked on, Connor, could be gone tomorrow. And I truly believe that. It could be gone tomorrow. And I don't have a scarcity mindset. I think there's enough business out there for everybody. But if I stop doing what I do, it could be gone tomorrow. And I know that. And I treat it that way. And I respect my business and I respect my partners that way, that it's like this agent, this builder, they don't have to use me. They can kick me to the curb and they'll be just fine. Sure, I'd like to think, Connor, that if my wife left me, she couldn't replace me with someone better. But you know what? It keeps me sharp, buddy. It keeps me very sharp knowing, at least thinking that she could, because that keeps me on my toes. And I'm like, you know what? No one's beating me today. And so
That's right.
whenever we hit problems, here's a saying that I always tell myself. And this is in business and as well. You know, I've had a lot of business failures the last 2 years, and we're trying to build another business as we speak. I always laugh and I'm like, you know what? With a good attitude and more money, you can accomplish anything, right? Just throw some more money at it and smile and say, we got it. We'll figure it out, you know? So, going with my business, just not getting lost in the minutia of wanting to go from 0 to 7 million. It's going from 0 to 500,000, and then 500,000 consistently to 1 million, and then 1 million consistently to 2 million. And I'll tell you what, I had a really important lesson this week with Rate Update, which we'll talk about. And I get frustrated because I'm like, man, I want to have these many users. I think we're doing a really good thing for originators. But we had a big bug that hit us 2 days ago, part of yesterday, actually. So one of the issues why I made yesterday so tough for me was because we had this big bug that impacted 100 customers. And that's a big deal to me. Because again, I know it could be gone. I know getting these customers to use my software is a blessing to me, and it's not easy to get them. And just looking at it and being like, if I had 1,000 LOs and this problem hit, it'd be a lot worse than the 15 that I have. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So like every level, the point of that lesson that I take is there's lessons to be learned at every level. And I've had $10 million months, and I am not a $10 million per month producer at the moment, but we did 5 million last month, right? And there's lessons every step of the way of like, okay, this process failed me. I'm going to make it better. This process failed me. I'm going to make it better. This process is good for me. I'm going to reinforce that action. And so thinking that we're going to get to a level and that we can put it on cruise control is a false expectation. And to know that every level is going to have a series of problems and it's going to be a hill. And the fun thing about our job, Connor, is every month the production goes back to 0. It's a new month. It's time to take that boulder and push it up the hill again. And then the last day of the month, guess what? That boulder's back at the bottom and you're back there pushing the boulder again. And so, I think we romanticize this outcome that doesn't really exist. And because if you're frustrated at 1 million, you're going to be frustrated at 5 million. It's just a reality. And we like to think that we won't. Yeah, it can't be that, man. I made all this money. You're going to be frustrated because you want to do 10 million. So just understand that and just embrace it and say, okay, I will get better if I continue to work on this thing for an extended period of time, and I'm willing to work longer and harder than my competition and smarter because I got to be able to get my skills too. And as long as I try not to tie myself to the outcome, and because we often say, well, I don't feel like it, I don't want to do this action because I don't see the point, then we won't do the action. And so if I can stick to these actions that I know are good for my business over time, I will win. And that's it. That's that simple.
Yeah. Well, I love your mindset on finances, right? You're working towards financing another project and things that you enjoy doing and looking at money as a tool and not necessarily as, the vision or the success, right? I find that as a commonality among highly successful people. They look at money as a tool to help them accumulate more time, to accumulate more skills, to develop more projects, this, that, and the other thing. And then just the concept of detaching from the outcome is great. And I love that you're just constantly evaluating the process and making minor tweaks here and there, and maybe some major ones along the way. But I think that's so key. I mean, it's easy to get comfortable in this business, and there's going to be a season for that, right? I think everybody goes through seasons of discipline or motivation where they're like, yeah, I mean, your life could be completely different. You might have to say, I got to throttle back. My parents are getting old. I got to take care of them. And and there's just different things going on outside of business that are going to impact what happens in those moments. But when you're in growth mode, it is all about evaluating systems, executing, and really taking it up to the next level every time. Every bad day ends, Alex. So I'm glad you've got that mindset too. That's my favorite part about a bad day. It's always over at some point.
Exactly.
So you teased Rate Update. Tell us a little bit about that. I think it's an incredible tool, and would love for you to share with the audience a little bit more about what that is and the solution it provides.
Yeah. So being an originator in the trenches, I'm always looking at our processes and saying, how can I make this better? And an alarming issue that we have in our industry is that the average repeat business rate for the average LO is 18%. That means 1.8 out of every 10 customers you have and close a loan for will come back to you. The other 8 people, 7.8 people, they're not coming back ever. And it's unfortunate because we spend a lot of time, energy, and money and our health to literally fight the trenches and underwriters to get their file across the finish line. And then what happens is the client's done, they get into their house and they forget about you in most cases. And if you're exceptional, you might close 25% of your repeat business. But that's if you're exceptional, right? And I'm not exceptional. So I'm going to say I'm 18%. So I was like, well, wouldn't it make a lot more sense and I'd be more profitable? And if I'm more profitable, I can build a more sustainable business if I would just get more of those people to come back to me again in the future. And that's the thesis. That's it. That's my thesis with Rate Update. Now, there's a lot of fancy tools on the market that do a lot of cool things. And I think they all serve a purpose. But at the end of the day, a tool is a tool, but unless it actually gives you the outcome you're looking for, why pay for it? The problem is this: if you buy a book, and let's say I buy a book and I'm like, I want to learn how to do this thing. The human psychology is just by the action of buying the book, I've scratched the itch of learning the thing, even though I've never opened it. So I buy the book, Connor, and in my head, guess what I get? I get validation that I'm like, oh yeah, I'm making progress on learning how to do this thing, okay? But I never even opened the book.
Guilty.
Exactly. Me too, right? So what happens is LOs pay for these tools that don't work. But because they're paying for it and they use it, they go, oh yeah, I'm paying for it. It's solving what I needed to do. But if you really look at the stats and you then realize like, wait, that money didn't actually generate a lot of repeat business. It didn't bring those customers back. So very simply, what I've created with Rate Update is a monthly rate digest for LOs that's personalized to the LO. So this goes out to your database bi-monthly or bi-weekly, sorry. And it has your face, your branding, your name all over it, and we're displaying the national average interest rates. Now, that's not that new, right? There's tools, and I've been told, hey, I have a tool that does something similar, or a lot of loan officers do that manually with their referral partners. Number one, I'm like, is that really a good use of your time to do that manually? Probably not. But people understand the problem I'm looking to solve, the mechanism in which I'm delivering, which is the interest rates. That's really good content. People want to know, Connor, what's rates doing? Is it a good time to refinance? Can I save money? And so that is content that is tried and true and that users will always interact with. So going back to how do I stay top of mind with my customers? Sure, we should be doing annual mortgage reviews. Sure, we should be doing, happy birthday text. The reality is we don't. Truly, unless you have an automated way to do it, most people don't do it. So my goal is to automate as many things as I possibly can while still keeping the human element there as I possibly can. So we deliver a monthly rate. It's a rate digest that goes out with the 3-month trailing trend. It's really cool content we're getting. Now, let me now tell you the important part. The good part is that our software tracks who opens your emails, who's interacting with the emails, and going out today in the email, the customer can get a personalized rate quote by the loan officer, and it takes them to a long form lead quiz asking them, are they looking to purchase or refi? Are they looking to do this, right? And the whole goal, truly, the goal isn't to just take people's money to pay for the software, which is only $39 a month. So we waste more money than, I waste more money than that on who knows what in my house, right? With Amazon.
Right, yeah.
But for $39 a month, my clients, my referral partners, whoever I want to put in there, get a monthly rate digest from me that's personalized to them and me, keeping me top of mind. But then also, they can then select and fill out a long form lead quiz to then generate hot leads back to the loan officer. And that's the key, is to be able to give the loan officer data and actionable items to segment their audience on who should I be following up with. Who's opening up my emails? If Connor has a 2.5% interest rate, I'm not calling you, Connor, bro. I'm sorry, I'm not calling you on when rates come down. I'm just not going to do it, right? Now, hopefully, I catch you in my funnel when you're ready to make a move, because people make moves for all kinds of reasons, family, job related, X, Y, and Z. And so because I've been able to stay top of mind to you by sending you this content that you're interacting with, I have a closer relationship with you post-close than I've ever had before. So that's what Rate Update does.
Well, and I love I'm an analytics nerd. Like, I love looking at that data, seeing who's opened, who's clicked, and really kind of, gaining some insights into what the end user, how they're interacting with the digest in your scenario, and really getting some idea of, how do I follow up with this person? This is a much warmer lead. They've opened this 3 weeks in a row. They seem to have some interest. They're clicking on this link or whatever it is, right? And so,
Correct.
yeah, it sounds like something you really nerd out on.
Well, I'll tell you what.
But that data is so key.
It is. Well, and we're getting over 50% of people opening up our emails. And here's the funny thing, Connor, is we only track the first open. But if you go, and I can go and click and see how many times they've opened it, most people are not coming back to just open it once. They're opening it 5, 6, 7 times. And they see my face, my branding, my company, and now I am planting seeds. Now, here's a cool trick. If you're a brand new LO out there right now, I'm going to give you some insight. Because I've got selling the software, and I get people that go, you know what, Alex, listen, man, I've only closed 15 deals. Like, this software is not going to help me because I don't have enough of a database. I'm like, that's where we have to reframe your mindset here. Here's what I've done, and here's what I'm going to tell everyone that's listening to this. You can very easily, for maybe $100, go and scrape every single real estate agent in your market and get their emails, validated emails, because they give it. It's public data. I mean, they put it out there on all their signs, You can go pay someone off Upwork or Fiverr $100 to go get as many. Maybe it's 1,000. Maybe it's 10,000. Okay, depending on your market size. And then you upload them into your rate update system. And then you're going to let it work for you, and it's going to start sending them rate digest. I cannot tell you, there's two things that you're going to then do. Number one, guaranteed, you're going to get an offer, you're going to get a client, and you're going to pre-approve them, you're going to send it to the agent, and you're going to ask the buyer agent, hey, who's the listing agent on this deal? It's going to be an agent that's getting your rate digest, and you're going to call them. And you're going to be like, hey, Connor, this is Alex. Yeah, over at Guild Mortgage. How are you doing? Yeah. And know what they're going to say? They're going to be like, Alex, I know you. I've been getting your emails. Dude, we've never met before. I am so happy you're on the other side. I am so excited to get a deal done with you. The value that you just brought to that entire transaction, because you know I'm going to go call the buyer agent and be like, dude, I just had an amazing call. They're going to take our offer, blah, 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 tenfold.
Yeah.
But also, the second thing you're going to do is you're going to be able to track who's opening your emails. And you're going to say, okay, cool, Connor opened up this email 17 times. I'm calling Connor. Connor, this is Alex. How you doing, bud? Hey, listen, I know you're getting my emails, man. I hope I'm not bugging you. What do you think about it? And you're going to be like, dude, this is sweet. I'm able to use this and give it to my clients. I've just warmed you up. Instead of me calling you and saying, Connor, will you go to lunch with me? You want to go to breakfast with me? There's no connection between us. There's no affinity for me. You're going to look at me and be like, dude, who's this chump calling me, bro? Like, why are you calling me? Right?
Right.
With our software, you can generate hot buyer agent leads and build meaningful relationships as long as you have the skill set as a loan officer to be able to then take that relationship and say, Connor, how can I help you? What are you looking to do? Right? So there's a skill piece. I can get you in front of agents with rate update, but are you going to be able to take it over the 1 yard line and get a touchdown? It's going to be up to you.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a great technology, very smart, and certainly, an opportunity. You saw an opportunity, you saw a problem, you found a solution, you fixed it, and that's just that's awesome to see happen. So I'm impressed by you, Alex. I really appreciate you joining us. Let's wrap up and wind down. You've given a ton of just awesome value to the listener. I prepped you for 5 questions. I do this at the end of every episode. Love to just kind of get to know some of the fun side of things. So what would you say is a favorite quote of yours from a movie, a TV show, or song lyric, or anything just pop culture for you?
Dude, I'm a big Jim Carrey fan. Growing up, watching Jim Carrey, watching Liar Liar, watching Bruce Almighty, watching, The Truman Show, right? They're just iconic. I just get the nostalgia. I love it. But whenever I have an issue and something happens, I always just go, beautiful, right? That's all Bruce Almighty, okay? And whenever you have an issue or if I'm driving down the street and I'm with my wife and I see a really cool car that I like, it's my catchphrase, okay? But that's my favorite movie quote.
So if you're a Jim Carrey fan, I got to know, where do you stand on Cable Guy?
It's lower on my list.
Okay. That's the controversial one, right? Personally for me, cult favorite. I love it, man. Just the basketball scene, him dunking on everybody, breaking the backboard.
Have to rewatch it. Yeah, I might have to rewatch it. That's funny.
All right. So what's a hidden talent of yours?
Man, so this is a hard one because here's the funny thing, man, is I always like to laugh. I just try to give it my all, and so I don't try to hide anything. Like, what you see is the best of me. I'm like, listen, I don't have the luxury to go through life without putting in all my effort and everything I do because trust me, it wouldn't be good. So I don't know if I have a hidden talent. I think all my cards are on the table. It's like, what you think is good is what is good. That's what I got, man. I don't got anything else. So
I got you. Sounds good. Well, if you weren't doing loans, what would you be doing?
Man, I'd just be starting businesses, man. I love 0 to 1. I love coming up with an idea. I love researching a problem, seeing space in a market, and then trying to come up with my creative spin on it. And having conversations, getting your first paying customer. I'm telling you, there's not anything better in this world. You get the first person sold, and you're just like, let's go. And so that's what I do.
Yeah. That's really cool, man. What is a skill that you've always wanted to learn how to do?
Dude, I always laugh, man. I always tell my wife, in another life, not this life, but in another life, I think I was a singer. I think I was a pop star. I think I was a rock star. And so, I might have, my son is 4, and he's really taken a liking to music. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to be that old guy that's going to live vicariously through my son. And I'm just going to go put him in all the music classes because I didn't have that growing up. And so, anyways, so yeah, I'd be a singer, man. I'd want to sing like Bruno Mars or something like that.
Very cool. Very cool. And then last question, is there anything, one thing from your childhood, just something nostalgic that you wish would make a comeback? Could be anything.
Dude, there's I thought about this a lot, and I have a lot of memories growing up. My mom, I was raised by a single mom, and we would go to Chili's. Now, Chili's today is not Chili's of 15 years ago. I think we'd all agree.
No, it is not. Yeah.
And so going to Chili's and then going to Redbox and getting a movie, or they actually used to ship them
Yeah.
to your door. You probably remember, they used to ship them to your door before it was like, and so I remember them being so stoked because me, my mom, my brother, the three amigos would go out to eat dinner, and it was like a surprise because we didn't get to do it very often, and then go home and watch a new movie that was just came in the mail. Dude, nothing better. So I think bringing back old school Chili's was I'd probably bring back, and then also the red box where they would, or Netflix. It was
Oh,
Netflix,
yeah.
I think, right? That would ship to your door. So
Yeah,
just
Netflix.
the whole era,
Absolutely, man.
dude. The whole era
You
was sick.
know, well, you just made me think of, I want my baby back, baby back, baby back. We haven't heard that song in how long, right?
No, talk about good marketing, dude. We still know it. I mean, that's great.
We're still thinking of it, right? Barbecue sauce. So anyway, well, hey man, I really appreciate you joining the show. It's been great talking with you, and guys, we'll link some things about Alex in the newsletter and in the description of the podcast, so you can learn a little bit more about him and about Rate Update and everything he's got going on. But Alex, I really appreciate you joining the Lowdown today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.